This episode is brought to you by Microsoft 365. Get apps you need, features you want, and protection you trust, all in one Microsoft 365 plan. Add creative polish to your projects and elevate your style with built-in design tools. Get peace of mind and protect what matters most with advanced security. Make daily tasks easier and stay organized on the go wherever the day takes you. Why wait? Maximize the everyday with Microsoft 365.
Let Sarah Honda Granville make your holiday season extra special. As Michigan's #1 Honda dealer 7 years running, they can do just that. How? When you are #1, you are first in line for the inventory. And if you want to see for yourself, just pull off I-196 at 44th Street and drive into their lot. You'll see lots of brand new Hondas at Sarah Honda Granville. And with the end of the year in sight, they want to clear out their inventory with deep discounts and special financing offers. Now is the time to save big on your next Honda. SarahHondaGranville.com.
If you ache for truth, goodness, and beauty, if you're hungry for a Christianity with substance and strength, if you long for a faith that's big and bold and biblical and all about Jesus Christ, if you're inspired by the idea of one church that has spanned 20 centuries, 24 time zones, and 2 hemispheres, enfolding every race, nation, and language, then you're considering Catholicism. So it's the first week of December, and I'm trying to get into the Christmas spirit. Now, liturgically, of course, it's the beginning of Advent, and I'm focused on that from a spiritual standpoint, but I want to feel the Christmas spirit, the seasonal boost and energy that comes with Christmas and thinking about Christmas coming and just getting into that mood. So every year I go through this exercise, and that's to put together my Christmas playlist on my phone, which I carry with me to have my AirPods in when I go walk the dog or whatever. And I want to have some nice Christmas music, or when we're around the house in the morning cooking breakfast or in the evening or whatever, I throw the playlist on the Bluetooth speaker and we listen to some Christmas music. And I think, I really want to get into the spirit of this. And so what I do is I go to Apple Music and Spotify. Those are the 2 music streaming services that I use on my phone and on my iPad or whatever. And I begin to look for Christmas playlists because they have a lot of sort of pre-made playlists. So you'll see like holiday playlists or whatever this time of year. And interestingly, they're all labeled holiday playlists anymore. You don't see any that are labeled at the top of Apple or Spotify as Christmas playlists. It's holiday playlists. So I go through and I drill down and I start looking for them. And as I go through these holiday playlists, what comes up, I mean, there's dozens, hundreds of them, but they're all filled with stuff that's not really about Christmas. It's like super secular. So either you get like the Hot Rod Rudolph or the song about mom making out with Santa Claus or some kind of thing like that, or kind of gauzy, nostalgic home for the holiday songs, or something that's ironic, like they're kind of making fun of Santa and the trees or Frosty or something, but in some kind of ironic way by some pop star, or you've got, it was funny, I looked for traditional Christmas playlists, and listed under traditional in Spotify and Apple is Feliz Navidad. So that's considered traditional Christmas music at this point. So whatever. But I'm looking for traditional Christmas carols. Okay? Christmas carols. It's Christmas. It's about the nativity, the birth of Jesus. I'm looking for Christmas carols that are about the baby Jesus and the wise men and the shepherds and all of that. I want to listen to nice songs about the nativity that I can hum or sing along with while I'm driving in the car, walking the dog or whatnot, like Old Holy Night and O Little Town of Bethlehem or O Come All Ye Faithful. So here I am once again this week, wading through Apple and Spotify, trying to sort of pick and choose song here and build my own kind of custom playlist, something decent for this year. And you have to enter keywords to find them. Like you have to enter religious Christmas or Catholic Christmas. And finally you get to a few playlists and lists of songs or albums with some of these kinds of what I would consider traditional carols. Again, traditional not in the sense of Bing Crosby singing White Christmas or Jose, whatever his name is, singing Feliz Navidad, but traditional carols about the Nativity. But here's the thing that strikes me, is it's just the same relatively short list of carols, just redone 27 different times by different artists and arrangements and genres. And so over time, especially the last few years, it's dawned on me that there just aren't that many traditional Christmas carols about the birth of the baby Jesus. After hours of searching over the last several years, I actually compiled a list of all of what I consider to be the traditional popular Christmas carols that I can find. And I'm defining a Christmas carol as basically a song that has 3 or 4 verses with rhyme and meter. It's in a traditional arrangement. And it's about the Nativity. It's going to be lyrically and theologically rich and inspiring. It's singable as you're listening to it, singing along with it, driving your car, walking your dog, whatever. It's singable by congregations and people in groups because it has a melody that you can kind of quickly pick up and remember. And it was written for popular singing, and everybody can, again, sing along. That's the whole point of the carol, right? Little children can sing it. We could all go caroling door to door if that was a thing anymore. So anyway, here's the list that I came up with. Now, I may have missed 1 or 2 or 3, and if so, write me an email at consideringcatholicism@gmail.com. But I had to stretch to get to 20 of these carols, okay? Traditional Christmas carols about the baby Jesus. So here's my list. And as you get down to the bottom of the list, I think some of them get a little sketchy. And I may have left off 1 or 2, but it kind of falls off, in my opinion, after about number 15. These are in no particular order. They're just the order that it popped in my head. So, and from searching on Google and through all these music services and albums, here I go. I've got Angels from the Realms of Glory, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Joy to the World, The First Noel, O Little Town of Bethlehem, Silent Night, O Holy Night, O Come All Ye Faithful, We Three Kings, Angels We Have Heard on High, Away in a Manger, Do You Hear What I Hear, In the Bleak Midwinter, O Come, Emmanuel, It Came Upon a Midnight Clear. Now, that's 15. And then after that, you get into some others, like 16 I have on here, The Holly and the Ivy, which I really like. And then 17 I have Coventry Carol, which you've all heard it. That's the lululule, lululule. But, it's not really singable. And what does lululule mean? I know what it means. It's all about, but I don't know. I'm leaving it on there because everybody recognizes it. Then you have some ones that I think are marginal, like we don't really sing them much anymore, like Once in Royal David City, Mary Did You Know, which I don't really consider to be a Christmas carol. It's a song, but I don't really love it. And it's not really a carol. It's more of a song. But okay, I'll leave it on there. Then at number 20, I have Good King Wenceslas, which like nobody sings anymore. And it's kind of an inspiring story about this king from Bohemia or something who got martyred. But I don't know. I don't really consider much of a Christmas carol. And then you've got like O Tannenbaum, which so anyway, that's it. I mean, that's all I could come up with. 20, maybe if you stretch 23, 24, 2 dozen. And let's say that at, 3 minutes each, that's an hour, 20 times 3, that's an hour of Christmas carols. Okay. So on my playlist, I've got just 1 hour of music in endless cycles for a month. Now, I've thrown in some others, Ave Maria, this and that. There aren't really Christmas carols. And of course, you've got multiple versions of those. So like Silent Night as sung by. But that gets old, right? Like here's Mariah Carey's classic version of this song, and here's Bing Crosby singing it, and here's the latest country and western pop singer guy, and here's the hip hop version or the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, whatever. But it's still just the same 15, 16, 20, 21 carols, and that's it. And so I started asking myself, why? Why are there only 20 carols about the Nativity. Because at one time in the past, they wrote singable songs about the Nativity, right? The birth of Christ. But none of the ones I listed have been written in the last 100 years, as far as I can tell. Name one Christmas carol, as I've defined it, written in the last century. So why hasn't anyone written any new Christmas carols in like the last 100 or 200 years? Now, here's the exception. There is some Christmas music written about the birth of the baby Jesus more recently, because if I go into Apple or Spotify or Amazon or whatever music service, and I enter the word contemporary Christian Christmas, a whole lot of other songs come up, but they're all evangelical praise and worship songs from like Hillsong Worship or Chris Tomlin or something. So it's some song like, if the theme is the wise men came on that starry night, then it's like an endless repetition of the wise men came on the starry night. And then the wise men came on the starry night. And then it's a chorus about the wise men that came on the starry night. And then there's a bridge. And then they came starry night, starry night. And it just goes on for 9 minutes. And I'm sorry, it's boring. I'm sorry, dear listeners, but I became a Catholic partly to escape contemporary praise and worship music because it's just dull and repetitive and kind of mindless. Now, you do have a couple of contemporary Christian artists that have written Christmas songs, people like that I think of maybe 30, 40 years ago now, but like Michael Card. And it's good stuff, but it's singer-songwriter stuff. It's like listening to James Taylor sing a song about Christmas or something. You can appreciate it, and you can appreciate the lyrics, but it's like you can't sing along with it. I mean, little children with scarves and cups of hot chocolate are not going to go door to door singing Michael Card songs to people. So I'm back to the question, like, what happened? Why hasn't anyone written any decent Christmas carol in the last century or two? Well, this is not the first year that this problem has occurred to me. In fact, last year, I went off on an epic rant about this to my wife. Now, she's a saintly woman, far better person than I am, and she agrees with my basic point, but she doesn't have a lot of sympathy for my inability to build a playlist in my phone because she works in retail, and since Thanksgiving, she hears nothing but an endless loop of Frosty the Snowman and Santa Claus is coming to town and Santa Baby and I saw some mommy kissing Santa Claus or whatever. And she's like, if I have to endure that stuff at work all day, then you can bear it while you walk the dog. So last year, in search of a more sympathetic soul, I ranted to Cory, who is a frequent guest on this show. You're familiar with him, I'm sure. And Cory agreed with me, and then he added his own complaints. And so we sort of ratcheted each other up. And then, this is all last year, I called Ed the Protestant, who's another frequent guest on the show, and he threw gasoline on the bonfire because he's a professional musician and a Christian musician. And so he sort of joined in our outrage at the lack of Christmas carols, and our outrage began to reach dizzying heights. And I was sort of enjoying it. And I thought, this is great stuff. We should record this. So I got the recording equipment, and the three of us sat around a table and we kind of went off on it. And I recorded that, and last Christmas time, last December, I released it as 2 episodes a year ago called Whatever Happened to Christmas Carols, Part 1 and Part 2. And I'll put the links to those in the show notes. But because I got so frustrated again this week, walking the dog with my AirPods on, I thought, why is there only 1 hour of good, enriching, inspiring, theologically solid music about the Nativity and 47,000 hours of Santa Baby and Feliz Navidad? So this week I decided to go back and edit the 2 episodes from last year and sort of splice together the highlights of that conversation, because there were a lot of great insights. Okay. Ed the Protestant, as a professional Christian musician, worked in music his whole life, had a lot of really great insights as to why we don't have Christmas carols anymore. And Cory had a lot of really great insights as to how our understanding of Christmas, or the way we celebrate Christmas in our culture today, has really changed in the last 30, 40 years, so that the songs really don't have a place. So anyway, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share the spliced together highlights with you. And I want you to really listen because there's some great insights in here. So take a listen to this conversation. I hope you gain something from it and build your own playlist of quality Christmas carols to focus you on the gift of Jesus Christ in the celebration of his nativity.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that the hymn form is just pretty much passed out of the culture. Okay, it's just not there anymore.
What do you mean by that?
The hymn form would be
the song style.
The song style, 4-part harmony, something you can put down on one page of music with the 4 parts written out. So we're talking only about 16 or 20 measures worth of.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Now you're talking like technical music stuff, but unpack that a little bit. Help us to understand what is it? What are the essential elements of those old Christmas carols?
Well, they were built on the rules for composing, okay, which are not terribly familiar to me. I didn't take any college classes or anything, but the 4-part harmony has rules for how it's arranged. So 4-part harmony, you'll see in a hymn book, in a hymn arrangement, you'll see the soprano and alto on the top and the tenor and the bass on the bottom. There are 4 parts, and there are rules for how they move together, okay? The big rule is no parallel fifths. There you go. That's all I know about. Anyway.
Cory, do you understand anything that he's saying?
Not really.
Okay. So anyway, but there's a form.
Which is just evidence for what he's saying.
Right.
But there's a form for it. And even if you don't know those forms, when you hear a well-written hymn in 4-part harmony, it's pleasing, right?
I know it when I hear it.
Right? Okay. So then the people who did that well, there was a market for it. Right? People were assembling hymn books and it was, you can't make money selling 8 hymnals. You have to sell them to the whole country. Okay. You were in publishing, right? More about this than me. So when the time came that you could sell hymnals all across the country or sell a song to everybody who publishes a hymnal, then there's monetary
makes it worth it. Draws out the songwriters, the artists, they work on it. And yeah, you're right.
So that's one thing. Okay.
Right. And just so quick. Okay, so over the last, 40, 50 years, we had the overhead projector, followed by the slide projector, followed by the whatever digital, because back in the day, to your point, there were hymnals in the pews. So if you had a church where there were 300 seats or 500 or 1,000 seats in your church, you're buying 500 copies of that book at $14.95 or whatever the publisher price was. And now you go, well, once we started going down that path, and I'm old enough to remember when we were putting them on the overhead projector thing, right? And so now there's no music to sell. There's no business model for that.
Well, this is part of the greater dumbing down of music. So we're not reading notes on a page in church anymore. So the ability to do that has dropped way off. Okay. And the songs that we sing now you only get them from the radio. That's the only place you get them.
Or now, of course, whatever the modern radio is, which is Spotify and YouTube.
Right. But okay, so I go to church at the Protestant church. How does my music director find new songs that people can sing? Well, they have to already know them pretty much.
Right.
Pretty much. I mean, and so the words are going to be up front. So it's got to be super simple so that you can catch it the first time around or the second time around. And nobody's going to be reading any notes. So the motivation to write something like that is kind of gone. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I have a couple of thoughts based on what you said, Ed. One is kind of parallel to that, is that we don't really have a culture of popular singing anymore. Like you have the old stereotype of people going door to door Christmas caroling, or people just singing in their homes, whether it's hymns or other popular kinds of songs, or people singing in pubs or bars or whatnot. We just don't do that as much anymore culturally. And I think that saps away a lot of the demand for something like a hymn, because we generally just that's not on our radar. It's not something we do for fun or just casually. And the other thing is that even though there are churches that still have hymnals, most Catholic churches do because they don't use projectors, blessedly. Even in that case, the demand for that kind of song has fallen off except at Christmas time when we pull out
Right.
the tried and true 15 songs or however many it is. And this isn't universal, of course, but for the most part, people are wanting different kinds of songs. They're wanting just things that aren't in that form, as you said.
Right. Well, there's no, so every Christmas Eve, my wife's family, we all go to a church in town that does a big Christmas program. And it's very good. It's very with a horn section, a big orchestra with violins and a big choir and all that. And everybody playing a horn and everybody singing in the choir. The average age is like 90. You know what I mean? There's hardly any kids in this because it's not cool to play the trumpet. Who wants to play the clarinet anymore?
There are, and so much has become performance-based, right? So, my son and his wife last week went to see Trans-Siberian Orchestra, right? Which is this amazing kind of Christmas concert with lasers.
Yeah,
and,
I went to it as a teenager.
Yeah, and it's like kind of a modern sort of Christmas tradition. What Handel's Messiah was to a previous generation, I guess Trans-Siberian Orchestra is. And they were here in town, and my son and his wife, and it was pretty cool. They said we should have gone with them, and maybe next year we will. But it's a show.
It's a spectacle.
There's a fog machine and lasers.
It's not participatory.
Right, and it's amazing, but again, it's not participatory. We don't engage. And I hear what both of you are saying is that there was a time when church music or Christian music or hymnody was something that the people engaged in, and they learned to sing, as you said, Cory, in their homes, and Ed, as you said, there were parts, and you had sheet music, and this cultivated a culture of singing these kinds of songs, and not just at Christmas, but all year, right?
Well, and you were talking about people writing these things, and especially in the age of publishing, that certainly happened. But you go earlier than that, and a lot of it bubbled up from the culture, especially the music came from what people were singing at the pub or around the fire at home. It wasn't as if some composer came and said, I'm going to write a tune and then write some lyrics to it. Oftentimes it was we kind of baptize the tune of a Mighty Fortress.
Mighty Fortress was a German drinking song or something, right? But even some of those things, right? I mean, you're right. I mean, some of those old things are tunes that have been around, and people write other lyrics. Like now, every other contemporary church you go to, they're going to do the Shrek song.
Shrek song.
Oh, the Hallelujah, like the song from the, right? And they just like change the lyrics.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, that's been going on, I suppose, for thousands of years, where popular melodies or whatever get, incorporated. But again, I'm going to come back to Ed on this. Help us to understand. Okay, I get the publishing thing, right? So you don't have rooms of writers going, let's crank out hymns, much less hymns about the nativity. How lyrically rich they are, because they have 4 or 5 verses.
Right.
And there's like incredible little insights in each of the verses. So one of my favorite lines is in A Little Town of Bethlehem. One of my favorite lines ever is, the hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. Now that is just theologically rich and imaginative, but that's only just like one line, and there's 4 verses of those insights.
Well, yeah, or think about some of the other ones, like Hark the Herald, like veiled in flesh the Godhead see, hail incarnate deity, pleased with us, man to dwell. Like that's a explication of like part of the creed.
Yeah. Well, look at O Holy Night. Like, was it like the 3rd verse or something like that? Somewhere in there, it's like the slave is now the brother.
Slave is our brother. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so like in one song that takes you, 4 or 5 minutes to sing, there's 4 or 5 verses, and each of those verses is full of all of these theological ideas. And what you typically have in praise and worship is you pick one idea.
Right.
So if this is going to be like the slave is a brother thing, that's it. Like you hand that to the songwriter and go, write me a thing built around the one line, which is one theological insight. The slave is a brother. And then it's like, you could do it, but the slave is a brother, and then you would in a bridge, and it's like 3 verses to just unpack one thought. Right. And so if they do a praise and worship set of 4 songs, you get like 4 ideas in 20 something minutes. Whereas the traditional hymn has 4 or 5.
It's much denser.
Denser in 4 minutes because each verse is rich. So it's like an attention span thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like this is, you use the term dumbed down.
Right. The songs are, this is, I have to warn you guys, I'm not very far away from a rant I can't stop. Okay, so let's go easy with me here. But it's getting to be that the songs are all about me. That's what the worship songs are about. They're not about God. Mostly they're about me. And if they are about God, they're about how I feel about God. And if there's theology in there, it's about how that theology affects me. It's always about me. It always comes back to me.
It's interesting you say, I know you have, and I've talked about this before. So praise and worship song is, I love you, Lord, I love you, Lord, or I praise you, Lord, I praise you, Lord, or you comfort me, Lord, you comfort me, Lord. But you say that I'm always in the lyric. And when I look at the hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight, I'm not in that lyric, right?
Well, you are, but with everyone else.
Right. with all the rest of the world, right?
So that has to, in order for that to work good, there's got to be an emotional appeal, right? What happens is that it's a downward spiral. Okay, it's a failure loop that they keep getting into, and pretty soon, if you're going to sell a song on the radio, it's got to be emotional, and it's got to be about the person who is singing it or listening to it, right? It's got to be about them, and because that's the only way you're going to sell songs.
And I can't comment on it like Greg on the technical level, but just from my experience, you talk about praise and worship being emotional. To me, it has always felt forced emotionally, they're trying to like manipulate my emotion into some kind of overwrought expression. Whereas if you have a good hymn that has a beautiful melody and you sing lyrics that have deep meaning and are poetically, it's a well composed lyric, it seems to me that emotions are often going to arise. It's not that it's a robotic, unemotional event, but it arises naturally from the beauty of the music and from the literary beauty of the lyric.
I just want to jump on that because I feel that so much. Like when we sing some of those traditional Christmas songs, Christmas carols, there are moments in them that I genuinely will feel like a tear coming to my eye. You know, when you think like the hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight, I mean, that actually just, I mean, I feel inspired by that, or I'll feel there's moments where you go, oh my, this is really poignant. But like you say, now we're supposed to feel this. It just, I don't know.
And you can't respond emotionally to those heavy lyrics unless you know something about what they mean. I mean, if the hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight, if you don't know anything about the story of salvation, well, what does that mean?
That's a great point. Sure. That you have to understand, right? So they are expressions of, they assume the audience has some biblical knowledge.
So I'll put a plug in for the Catholic Church, and it's no charge. No charge for that. This is what I see much more theology being taught just at a rudimentary level. Okay, so I started praying the rosary, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things I did was my mind was wandering. So I went on the net and pulled in pictures of everything.
Yeah.
So for the I got a wonderful picture of the announcement. Mm-hmm. It's just this beam of light and this young woman sitting on a bed, right? So I look at those things rather than, right? Okay, but I'm understanding all of this. And so if I'm getting that every week, every day in the rosary, and you're getting it every time you go to mass, you're getting that every time. My experience with Protestant churches has been that you mostly get, you don't get taught that all the time. You have to go to Sunday school to get that. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get that in the church service. And there's an enormous number of Protestants that just really don't understand any of it.
We started by talking about why is it that it seems that Christmas carols, meaning hymns about the nativity, singable hymns about the nativity, have sort of disappeared other than these artifacts, the 15 standards that just get recycled. So where do we go from here in terms of making Christmas rich for ourselves and our families? I mean, I've got my playlist of the 15 and I can cycle through them in about, an hour and 10 minutes. And then do I just hit replay or I don't know. Thoughts?
I mean, I'm I don't have the technical musical knowledge or training that I wish I had, but I'm a big pusher of just singing all the time. Like I sing with my kids when it's Christmas time, we sing Christmas carols. We don't wait to go to church to sing them. Of course, we do sing them there, but like as much as I can, I want to make that just a part of our culture. And my hope would be that can be a small contribution to restoring that to the broader culture, at least among Christians.
Morning people wake up for peace and quiet. McDonald's breakfast people, we wake up for the sweet rush of getting that warm, delicious breakfast right before it ends.
For just $4 at breakfast, you can get your choice of a sausage McMuffin or sausage biscuit, small coffee or small soft drink, and crispy hash browns. Just $4. Price and participation may vary.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
I say we need to unplug from popular culture. We need to disengage, unhitch the wagon, start doing it our own way. Even, I would say, I could even make a case that popular Christmas carols, the good ones we're talking about, and the hymns and stuff, they followed along popular culture back in the late 1800s when men were wearing straw hats and playing ukuleles and singing. It's not like the music that Handel was making or Mendelssohn. I was just listening to Ave Maria, and I thought, man, there's it's 1,000 miles deep there, right? Yeah. The hymns aren't that deep. That's all I say, sort of tied to and influenced by popular cultures. But that would be part of my solution, would be to stop looking to culture for any cues. You can't get away from it all.
We have to start building our own subculture, our own alternative culture. And really, Christians have done that throughout the last couple thousand years at various times in the Roman Empire and other times. We had to build our own culture. And we have been like infamous frog in the kettle or whatever, in the boiling water for a long time, where the popular culture supported a Christian understanding of Christmas. And it no longer does.
Well, I think even that phrase, the holiday season, is a giveaway, because instead of like in the Christian, the classic liturgical calendar of the year, you have a 4-week season of Advent to prepare for Christmas, and then Christmas is a short season that's made up of several important feasts. And instead of that, in popular practice, what you have is during that time when Christians would be celebrating Advent, you have this kind of nebulous, poorly defined, it's probably even longer than that, really, starts in October or something, and people kind of get together and do parties and stuff in a vague sort of way during that whole time. But you're not really, there isn't anything, you're not preparing for anything in particular, unless it's just opening presents on Christmas morning, I guess. And there isn't a focus of it. It's undefined festivity, I would say.
I go back far enough now. You do too, Greg. Almost as far. When I was a kid, there was just a general feeling in the world and culture, at least the culture in my world, that there were higher things than just us. The exact opposite of humanism. Okay, there was that feeling even in the movies from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. There's this sort of like this latent reverence for things, for higher things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you talked about worship music becoming sort of egocentric. It's all about the person who's singing it. I think there's a connection there, is that culture that you're talking about is focused on the transcendent. It's things that are above and higher than us, and most especially on God. And when you lose a sense of transcendence, you devolve to egocentrism, and it's all about us.
Yeah, well said. That exactly what I was thinking. I would say that we have lost Christendom out of our culture. Okay, even there was the larger world of people who, even if they didn't believe or practice Christianity, they respected it and they showed reverence for it, and they understood it to be the glue that held society together.
To even use the word Christendom anymore, it's almost like a laugh line, right? Like, can you talk about Christendom as a construct or a concept without it sort of just being kind of like a snicker anymore, or an incomprehensible thing anymore? I don't know, and people can and will argue forever about whether America was a truly Christian nation or whether it was more of a Christian-friendly nation. But what you can say is that the entertainment culture, the government culture, the sort of cultural institutions were at least friendly to Christianity up until 30, 40, a couple generations ago. There was a base understanding that Christmas was Christmas. Okay, so we can straight up say here, let's go back, and I don't know, Cory, when you're like consciousness, like awareness, like how your early memories were like or whatever.
Mid-90s.
Yeah, but see, because I remember still it was called Christmas, and even the schools would say we're going to have Christmas break, and it was and the TV show would be a Christmas special, or somebody put out a Christmas album, and it was still Christmas, and it was Christmas cards and whatever, and a Christmas sale at the store. And you had nativity scenes everywhere, right? So at the city hall and when public, all that thing, you'd have the little statues of the wise men and the sheep and everything, and the little manger, and here's the little baby Jesus. And this was like a thing, and nobody blinked that the reason that we were having this holiday break, or all of these holidays, was that it was Christmas, and Christmas was about the baby Jesus. Now, how many people for whom Jesus was their personal Lord and Savior, I don't know.
Didn't matter to them, sure.
But at least we understood that the whole point of this was Christmas and nativity. That's gone.
Well, I think it was during my childhood that battle was really fought, kind of around the turn of the century, turn of the millennium, because I remember all of that sort of culture war stuff about people getting really upset about the introduction of Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas and all of that. So it's not that long ago, from a broader perspective, that we hit a sort of tipping point where enough people in American society either had attached no real importance to the Christian faith and to what Christmas was about, or became actively against it. And we're past that. We're rolling down the other side of the hill now. We're that ship has sailed.
This is within a generation. I think that's one of the things that's so striking is once it started to fall apart, it fell apart really fast. And it really unraveled to the point today that I think you can get sued if you put a nativity scene in certain places, and you can get, so you have this sense that the full power of the tech companies and the whatever you want to call it, the deep state and everything else is just basically arrayed against Christian expression and Christian doctrine, and it has been shoved out of the public square, off the public airwaves, out of everywhere, so that we're allowed to talk about it in private, but it's no longer a part of our public consciousness. Right. And it's become the holiday season.
Well, right. And it's really about what you can market and sell to people. It's a matter of mammon, essentially, and nothing sells like nostalgia. And so I think a lot of what you have in sort of Christmas or holiday culture right now is just repackaging people's childhood nostalgia and selling them their childhood experience again.
Interesting. Unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even when I was growing up, like my parents had and this was before their time, so they were probably experiencing their parents, my grandparents' childhood Christmas, but it was all like the Frank Sinatra and the Elvis Presley Christmas. Well, it was tapes then, but originally would have been records. And then like you have all of that 60s stuff, the Frosty the Snowman and the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and that's endlessly resold and promoted to people. And then my generation that grew up in the 90s or the early 2000s is now an adult and our prime market for people selling things. And so now they're simply selling us the things we remember from the 90s, even if it's the schlocky Mariah Carey stuff or whatnot.
Right. I mean, but it's recycling that stuff. And the other thing that strikes me that it's all about today is they've tried to reposition it, like to give a purpose to the holiday season. And so you go, okay, well, it can't be religious. Right? It's a holiday season, but we can't name the holiday or holidays that it's based on. And plus it's ecumenical, so many faiths. And we have obviously Christmas and we have Hanukkah and we have whatever Muslim holiday is. And then we have there's some kind of satanic feast day or whatever druidic thing or whatever crazy thing it is. So we can't actually reference any of that. So it's almost like they're looking for some reason for the holiday season. And what I have started to observe in the last number of years is it's being repackaged as family get-together time. Mm-hmm. So the purpose of the holidays is to get together with your family. And so if you look at commercials about the holiday season, it's all like relatives are going to come and we're going to give each other presents and eat food. And so now that was, of course, that always was a part of it, but that wasn't the primary reason. And that's something that you can sell right? So you sell the recipes, you sell the food, you sell the gifts, you sell the this, you sell
a lot of things that are just sold on association with that.
Yeah, the plane travel, this, and it has this kind of gauzy, gooey feel. So this is the time of year where like top tier ad agencies put out for whatever company these really slick tearjerker kind of commercials where there's the guy who comes home to his grandkids or something, or whatever. The girl comes home from college or something, and everybody gathers together and has a Coke and a smile or whatever the heck it is. But now, instead of being the nativity of the Lord, it's basically family travel, get together holiday.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think there's an awful lot of that. There's also a lot of stuff that's even a step down from that, which is merely selling things or creating an ambience around the holiday that's based on just like general winter coziness and like curl up with a Coke or a tea or whatever in your cozy sweater. And it's all very individualistic, which I think is part of, especially like my generation and younger, is starting to react against that gauzy image of like the family gathering and doesn't have as much time for that as sort of individualism creeps to its ultimate low point. And so a lot of stuff, I think, for Christmas is marketed is basically just winter festival and do it how you want to do it and just make yourself comfortable and ride out December.
There's just nothing underneath any of that. So you're gonna wrap up in a cozy blanket with a cup of coffee or a hot chocolate, and then what are you going to think about? Mm-hmm. The coffee, the chocolate, and the blanket. Where does it? You can draw.
I suppose. It's going nowhere. I suppose that from the most ancient times of ancientism, right? The seasons, humans just celebrated the seasons, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's summer and it's the middle of summer, right? So you have your solstices and your equinoxes, right? So it's middle of summer, it's kind of midsummer, and then it's
there's something
midwinter,
natural about that.
Right. So what it seems to me is that this has devolved. And I mean, you could say at the other end that the 4th of July, I don't even know how patriotic that is anymore about America. It's just become the midsummer festival. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, it's not 4th of July doesn't coincide exactly with the solstice, but it's around that time close enough. And it's sort of like it's the middle of summer. And now we have the middle of winter. And then we have the sort of warm fall.
Yeah. Halloween.
Time. Yeah. And then we have kind of like Easter has become kind of like a spring break, springtime thing. And so in some sense, it's a regression to earlier ancient. I mean, it's like the paganization of Christendom, or the devolution of that to Western civilization is now devolved back to basically just seasonal festivals. And this is a seasonal festival where it's snowy or it's cold or it's the short thing, like you say, you curl up with whatever or your friends gather and you just kind of enjoy the midwinter and you start planning the year ahead, and that's happy holiday, right? Happy winter holiday.
I found a quote. Arguably, the most challenging thing in this age is to be a Christian. Your enemies control the commanding heights of Western society. It's a good reminder that all moral frameworks must stand alone. In the case of Christianity, it means the logic of the faith must stand outside of and be opposed to the prevailing orthodoxy. Christianity now finds itself where it started. Welcome to the new Rome.
I think that's spot on.
Well, yeah, and I think this is where we're able to sort of refocus on this is considering Catholicism, is because the advice that the leaders of the church gave to their flocks at that time relative to this was draw back from those pagan celebrations, from the arena or the theater or the bacchanalia that's going on at various times. Draw back from that, focus on the liturgy of the church and the festivals of the church, and all of that which is focused on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And when you have to stand against the pagan society and its demands on you, do so, even if it's unto death. You were talking about martyrs.
So let's kind of wrap up with a quick little roundtable. What do we do to restore the nativity to the center of the happy holiday season? Cory?
I mean, contra what we've been doing for the last however many minutes, I think you can't start by just complaining about everybody else. You just have to do it yourself. The way you celebrate Christmas in your home and in your parish, align it with what we've been saying, and it goes from there.
I totally agree, Cory. Stand firm, right? And take your stand and don't be swayed, and be salt. Be salt and light.
Yeah, and I would say if there's a positive thing about the consumer society that we have today, is that we do have a lot of choices. Okay, so on the one hand, we can say that this is in a time where quality music or quality writing or quality whatever is at the top of the marketplace. But there's a lot out there, and more than ever before. 2 minutes on the internet will get you a huge amount of really solid Christian Catholic content. And I think that we have to just choose to be consumers of good stuff. Yeah. Because it is out there and you can find it.
Right.
And you can choose to consume that instead of other things. And so that puts the choice back on us. Well, I hope you got a lot out of that conversation. If you had listened to the episodes last year, then it was a little bit of a redo. But if you never heard them in the first place, then I hope that was valuable to you. Hey, again, build your own playlist, put quality stuff on it, and let's pray that somebody writes some new quality Christmas carols soon. In the meantime, would you like and review the podcast? Go to Apple Podcasts if you have access to that, or to our website, consideringcatholicism.com, and please write a review. The ones on Apple Podcast move the algorithms for raising us in search more than, for whatever reason, than reviews in other places. But your reviews really help. We're trying to grow the visibility. And also, I've got some Advent videos up that I did last week. And I'm going to be posting a new set of Advent videos and some other videos in the next week. So go to our YouTube channel, consideringcatholicism.com, and check out those videos, and please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can begin building a presence there. And again, go to the website, check it out, leave me a message there, email me with your comments or your questions, consideringcatholicism@gmail.com. And would you prayerfully consider supporting this podcast? Keep it going in this new year, and hopefully even expand it and grow it so we can reach more people and let them know about the richness of Catholicism, and hopefully they'll consider it and enter the church. So God bless you. We'll talk soon.
For all the dinners cooked.
Something smells good.
For all the clothes dried. For all the hot showers. There's safe, reliable natural gas from DTE. We keep gas safe by constantly inspecting, upgrading, and monitoring our lines 24/7, 365. So for all you do, natural gas is there for you. Find out more at dteenergy.com. DTE.